101.3 Flirt FM.
You're listening to the Galway Gamer on Flirt FM 101.3. My name is Eoghan Murphy and I am the Galway Gamer, and I am sitting here at Nexus, Gamerfest Nexus in Dublin City with the utter legend with more than 130 games under the belt. This guy has made more games than most people have played in their lifetime and is the godfather of the FPS genre. The creator of Quake, Doom, Wolfenstein 3D, the one and only Mr. John Romero. John, thank you so much for taking the time to come.
Thanks for having me here.
It's incredible to chat with you again. It's been a long time, and I only just realised that we've done this a couple of times over the years, but I believe this is the first time I've ever actually had you on the radio show. So
nice.
Thank you so much for taking the time. So, before we get into Doom, because this year is the 30th anniversary of Doom, coming up, I believe, in December. But first, let's go back just a little bit further and talk about Wolf 3D. Now, Wolf 3D starts off as a bit of a military shooter, if you will, but it kind of goes into a dark kind of techno fantasy halfway through. Why take the jump from the military side of things to the kind of the cyber hellscape that was Doom instead?
Well, we, as a company, had made a lot of games before Wolfenstein. Wolfenstein was my 87th game.
Wow.
And it had software, we made Wolfenstein in 1992, in January. We started in January. Mm-hmm. But 1991, we made 13 games, and they were all very different games. There were puzzle games. They were side-scrolling games, like there's a ninja game, and there's a haunted house game, and even a 3D shooter called Catacomb 3D came out before Wolfenstein, which is really like the first-person spellcasting FPS, right? And that came out with texture map walls and everything in EGA video mode in 1991, and we delivered that at the end of November. So we'd made a lot of different kinds of games. So going in Wolfenstein, going from a World War II game, which we'd never made a World War II game before, going from that to Demons was like no big deal. That's just normal. Every game that we made was completely different.
Okay, so you weren't pigeonholed into any one genre or
no, we created the genre, so we couldn't be pigeonholed into anything. We were making a lot of side-scrolling games, and that could have been pigeonholing. In 1990 when we made the first Commander Keen trilogy, we did a lot of side-scrolling games after that, using that technology and improving the technology, rewriting the entire engine halfway through 1991, and then making our second Commander Keen, set of games. There were actually 4 Keen games that we made in 1991, starting with Keen Dreams, which was the kind of the prototype of that new tech. And then the other 3 games, which was Goodbye Galaxy and Aliens Ate My Babysitter. So we could have been pigeonholed into side-scrolling. In fact, in 1992, we started making the 3rd trilogy of Commander Keen.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we started making Keen 7 in January. And about 2 weeks in, we had a really great parallaxing VGA side-scrolling engine running. And I just came up, it was 1 in the morning, because we worked all the time. Mm-hmm. At 1 in the morning, there's just 4 of us in the company. And I just said, guys, we should not be making this game. And they went, what? and I just said, we just delivered a 3D texture mapped game just, a month ago. Mm-hmm. And that's the future. Like, that's where games are going. Why are we doing side-scrolling stuff right now? We shouldn't. Because this will eat up, like, our year, probably, if we do these games. If we keep on taking more time to do them really well, it's going to eat up half a year at least, probably. And I said, we should be making 3D games. We can do better than the last one that we made. And they were just like, yeah, I agree. That's probably what we need to do. And then it was like, but what would we do? And so some ideas were kind of thrown around, and I said, those aren't really good. Those aren't innovative, interesting ideas, because people just have played too many of those kinds of things. But But making a 3D version of Castle Wolfenstein would be incredible. Not a Nazi killing game. And so they immediately went, wow, that would be amazing because we loved Castle Wolfenstein. We were Castle Wolfenstein had come out 11 years earlier, so it was long forgotten, right?
Yeah.
So, but not for us. And so they remember how innovative that game was like a revolutionary game in the industry 11 years earlier. So they understood instantly that was the best idea. And so that's what we started doing. We started making Wolfenstein 3D, and it took us from that idea to shipping the shareware version. It took us 4 months. It took 4 months to make that shareware version.
Yeah.
And then we spent a month and a half making 5 more episodes because we shipped 1 episode, and that was for free to give to the world for free. And then the next 5 we made in 1.5 months, plus a hint book in that same time. That was for all 60 levels, and then the game was fully completed, and it could be actually sent to people who bought it. And we had a package where the most expensive thing that we were selling was all 6 episodes plus this hint book for $60, and basically everybody bought all of it. No one bought anything less than that, so it was just like massive success when that game came out. So. And it was big. Even the Commander King games were like revolutionary games that changed PC gaming because no one had seen something like that before. And so that's what we were doing. So a different idea beyond Wolfenstein was just like, we're doing it completely different. Yeah, it was normal. We're making side-scrolling games, and then we're going to do a 3D game, and then we're going to make another 3D game, but we're going to change everything with that next 3D game,
Excellent. Well, let's talk about the aesthetic of Doom then. It often comes across as almost a horror. There's a lot of disembodied bits and pieces in the background. There are kind of satanic imageries here and there. Was it difficult to find a balance between the fast-paced shooting action and that kind of horror aesthetic to make it work? Because growing up with Doom, I loved the gameplay, I loved how fast it was, but it scared the heck out of me. It hit me as a horror game before anything else, Was it difficult to find that balance? Did one push the other off at all?
We learned a lot in Wolfenstein. While making Wolfenstein, we put more in the game to actually make it more like the original Castle Wolfenstein. We put more design into the game, and when we found what the game was about during those 4 months, when we found what the identity of the game really should have been, is pure fast action, not stopping and searching dead bodies and trying to unlock stuff. Like that stopped the full-on running through the game. And so we removed all the programming and stuff out of the game to just make it pure run and gun. And that showed us, like, always focus on that. That is the core. That is the most fun core. And so when we made Doom, that was a core part of Doom's design. Is like nothing to stop the player except a door, right? Other than that, you should be able to run all over the place. And so that was super important for the design of the game. And then as we added, I guess, the same kinds of things that we had in Wolfenstein, those became things that we took away because, I identified that we had a lot of things in Doom that were for score to pick up points, right? And it was like, points is not the goal of Doom. The point of Doom is to survive, to just get out of that level. And scooping up points is not something we're not going to make a high score list. Like, who cares? That's not the point, because then it kind of makes people think this game is about getting points.
Yes,
and it wasn't. Yeah. So we removed all the items that were about getting score and removed the idea of score from the game. And then that was like an arcade era design. And then the other thing was having 3 lives and you're done with playing the game.
Oh, really?
Every game that we had made up until that point had lives.
Yeah.
When you die, you take off a life. When all the lives are gone, your game is over. You got to start it all over again or reload, right? And that was another arcade holdover because arcade games needed you to keep putting quarters in, right? Play it again. So you're not just playing forever. So it was like, get rid of lives. We don't need lives. If you die, you start at the beginning of the level again. You don't go backwards to start all over. How are people going to finish our game and actually pay for it? If they can't get to the end of it, they probably won't want to pay for it. And if they do get to the end, that's a higher success rate and a probability that people will actually want to pay for the whole thing. So getting rid of lives was also getting rid of a holdover design.
I can't even imagine Doom with lives.
Yeah,
I really
I know.
Can't.
It's crazy.
It seems like two different worlds almost.
Yeah.
Like.
So we had lives and we had score. I got rid of those two things, and the focus was just on the immersion and the environment, and like the scary stuff that you were encountering was probably a lot of episode 2 and 3, because there was a lot of darkness in those episodes.
Yes.
And Sandy Peterson did a lot of those maps and did just an amazing job. And I remember when I was playing the game, as you're developing the game, you're playing it all the time. And when I started playing his levels, I didn't know what his levels were like. So to me, it felt like a player who had never played the game before coming in. And so I could feel that terror when you hear the noises, like there's something out there and it's pure dark. You're going to walk through this doorway and you can't see, and you can just hear all of the demons out there. And it's like, I will just have to get ready to shoot, and it was great, because then I felt what other players would have felt, minus the whole, like, I've never seen a world like this before. The graphics are made, like, all that stuff was normal, but it was the experience that I got.
The tension. From
playing someone else's level to feel the way that, part of the way that players would feel. The other part is just like seeing levels that had never existed on a computer ever in history, right? Like, there was no such thing as maps that looked that way, because before Doom, even Wolfenstein, they're just 90-degree hallways turning.
Of course,
right?
yeah.
So it was brand new.
Let's talk about those levels then, because Doom has a huge level building community, and still does, to a point where the most recent releases of classic Dooms have a bunch of fan-made levels in them, keeping the experience fresh. Are there any of these levels or episodes that you just love?
Definitely My House. .wad.
That's quite new, isn't it?
Yeah, it came out in March.
Yeah.
And this is the 30th year of Doom, and the best mod came out in the 30th year. It's just incredible. It's really amazing. The community has source ports that allow a lot of really great stuff to happen in the game. Like, you could actually build Quake in the GZ Doom source port because of its full 3D capability. And so you can extend the Doom maps to be like Quake maps. So it's really, really a strong community. There are awards given out every year to the best levels. There are amazing level designers like Skillsoft, that make levels that are just amazing, consistent quality, and people are always looking forward to it. So the mod community is still crazy strong. There's so much prior art in Doom level design that if you wanted to get into it and you wanted to wonder, like, how should it look, how detailed should I get, what is the state of the maps, you can just easily go to doomworld.com and just start downloading a bunch of the CAC Award winners of the last year and just study those maps. They won awards. Look at the building techniques, note all the textures, note the architecture, note the lighting, the experience moving through the game, because that's really the most important part of the whole level, is how the designer forces the player into a specific cadence through the level of fighting and exploration and mystery and just like fear and all the other things that Doom does. Those winners have done something new. And that's really important. Like, there are still new things to do in level design in Doom 30 years later. When I came out with Sigil 5 years ago, which was an episode for Doom, it's episode 5, I was doing new stuff that had never been done in Doom yet and has been there the whole time. Like, anyone could do it, but it's just fantastic. Like the capability of that engine is so powerful that it's just, all it takes is thinking to make something new, because there's a lot of great pieces there to use. And so... yeah, it is probably the best game to start getting good at level design, because if you use Unreal Engine, which is incredible, or you use Unity, you have to, you're in an IDE and you're building some stuff in 3D, but it's not a full game experience. It is just running a character through a level thing that you're making, but you don't have gameplay in there. And so with Doom, you could make a room in less than 1 minute. You can just basically draw a box, put a character in it, run. And you are already running in Doom. And you stretch out a wall, make a hallway, change the light level, change the textures, boom, another minute, and the experience is totally, changed. And so you can get really used to building stuff very quickly in a full game, and just, using those, those are the primary shooter design pieces are in Doom. They're in today's games.
You make it sound like it's quite easy to put together, but you do have 30 years of Doom experience there behind you. For a newcomer, would it be that handy?
It is. Yeah. Doom Builder, or say Ultimate Doom Builder. You download it. It's free. Go to zdoom.org and download GZ Doom, which is a really great source port. Works on Linux, Windows, Mac. And then you download Ultimate Doom Builder, different site, and you basically learn how the controls work. That is the only thing, is you learn how the controls work, and building levels is just effortless. It's super simple. Yeah.
That's cool. That's absolutely awesome. Let's talk a little bit about the demons within Doom, all of which, as I mentioned earlier on, terrify me. Still do to this day. I still feel that tension when I see a spider demon come along.
They're bad.
When you hear that electronic crank in the background of it, But the demons in Doom, they seem to be kind of loyal to their own species. They fight amongst each other, but they fight interspecies fighting, if you will, except for the humans.
Yeah,
humans
they kill
will take
each other
out. Yeah. Was that a commentary on humanity as a whole, humanity's self-destructive tendencies, or anything like that?
Kind of, yeah. Yeah, they'll shoot each other. If somebody gets shot, they're going to get mad, and they're going to shoot back. It's just, that's war. And so the demons, there was a little bit of a infighting decision where, if a bigger demon hit a lesser demon, that lesser demon would get mad pretty much immediately at the big one. But if the little one hits the bigger one's like, whatever. And so they don't get so mad until they take enough damage, and then they'll turn on them, right? But you go the other way from bigger to smaller, and they'll turn around and immediately go nuts. But yeah, it was really important to make that game feel immersive and more realistic, to have infighting between the mobs, because there were a lot of them, and you needed them to kill each other to just help you out, Yeah,
the brilliant strategic maneuver while playing.
Yeah, you move over this way, because sometimes a level will start and there's enemies facing you and they want to start shooting at you. So if you have another enemy between you and them, you move over and let them get shot, and then they get mad and start shooting the person who was shooting you, and then hopefully that's taken care of and you can move on to something else, and do that multiple times and get everybody incredibly mad at each other, and just try and wait until they're all dead if possible. But yeah, it was a really great thing that you just don't see in games anymore. A really cool design decision.
In Quake, you got to work with Trent Reznor from Nine Inch Nails. You even had the little 9 Inch Nails box of nails as ammunition in there. Then recently on Sigil, you worked with Buckethead doing the soundtrack for that. Yeah. Also, speaking of Quake, I only played Quake for the first time recently, over the last couple of years. When it got re-released, I believe it was Night Dive Studio who released it. Yeah. That game is amazing. How did I miss it?
Thanks.
Oh my goodness, man.
Yeah.
I got absolutely addicted to it. It's phenomenal. But you got to work with Buckethead, Trent Reznor, a couple of others over the years, and you're a heavy metal fan in general.
Yeah.
Are there any other metal legends that you'd like to work with in your games?
Well, I was talking to George Lynch for a while, and he was kind of ready to do the music on a game that I was gonna make, but then decided to just not make that game. But there's always the possibility of working with George. He's just an incredible guitarist. I love his sound. It's almost like, out of all those metal guitarists that are just incredible, Yngwie, Reb Beach, you name it, all these great guitarists, I think I felt like I identified with George as if I was going to become a guitarist, I probably would have sounded like George Lynch. I think, just like
cool.
Just his aesthetic matched mine. And so I really identify with him. And then, but with Buckethead, he's just like an alien from another planet. He can play anything in any style perfectly. He's super emotional with his music. Yeah, he to me is probably the most impressive guitarist I've ever witnessed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, out of everybody, because of his range and because of he still makes tons of albums a year. In 2016, he made 113 albums.
Sorry, what?
Yeah. Might have been 118, actually. Every 3 days he put out an album in 2016.
Like full-length records?
Well, it was 30 minutes.
Wow.
And so that 30 minutes was maybe multiple songs, sometimes just one half-an-hour song. And it's not like the other ones, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And that's the really important thing, is that he doesn't repeat himself. So when you listen to an album, you're listening to a new sound from him, and listen to the one before it, it has a totally different motif, right? It just sounds different. So his I guess creativity and inventiveness is like knows no bounds. When he does something, he has lots of techniques for how he wants things to sound. There's lots of technology nowadays to make guitar sound certain ways. So he'll pick a sound, and he'll pick a style, and he'll pick a motif that he wants to go after, and he'll make multiple songs with a thread that's consistent through them all. And you know that it's from that one album, just from the vibe of the whole thing,
the theme of it,
and the theme that ties all those songs together. And I can't say enough, if you want to hear a really great sampling of Buckethead music, because there's no compilations in the world made of Buckethead. He just makes entire albums. He's never done a compilation, except when I made the Sigil soundtrack. It's the first compilation of his music ever made.
Wow.
So if you want to go to YouTube and look up Sigil, S-I-G-I-L, Sigil soundtrack, then you'll get a really great sampling of his stuff. And the very first song is called Romero, One Mind, Any Weapon. And that was the first level of Sigil, and it's like really fast, it's crazy, it shows a lot of technique. And then after that he made that song just for Sigil. And then after that are a bunch of songs from his Pikes series that he started in 2014, I think it is. Maybe it was a little earlier than that. But I chose all those songs from his back catalog of just like, these are choice songs, these are great. And so you'll hear like greatest hits basically on the Sigil soundtrack, and just like, how did I not know about Buckethead when you hear it? It's like his stuff is so good, and it works so well in a game like Doom, because Doom's gameplay is not over in 3 minutes. It could take a long time, right? And his songs are so long, there's no repetition. So the experience of going through the level, the music matches that, because the level's not repetitive and the music's not repetitive. You're going through a brand new thing constantly, and it works really, really well.
I'm still baffled by that 130 records part there.
118 in 1 year. So he's made over 500 albums, and that doesn't even count his collaborations with other artists, which goes about 400 of them.
Wild.
Yeah.
Oh my, that's so cool. That genre of FPS, as we said, it moved off then into, say, military shooters, tactical shooters, and one of my personal favourite genres of all times. But the classic style that you have with the likes of Quake, the likes of the original Doom, for example, is now known as boomer shooter. You've also got a lot of new games coming out in that same style, the likes of Proteus, for example, great game. Bolt Gun, I've heard is phenomenal. But the term boomer shooter, what do you make of that?
I thought it was hilarious when I heard it, because a boomer is someone who was born right after World War II. That's my mom. I'm not a boomer, right? My mom is an actual boomer. But it's like kids nowadays are like anyone who's old. Boomer's a great name for anyone that is older than them, right? So like, it's funny because nowadays kids who are in their 20s will say, oh, you're from the 1900s. If you're older than 23, right? It's like, you're from the 1900s. It's like, oh my God, I am. but boomer shooter, just accepting that just means old school shooter. I think it's a really great. It flows. Boomer shooter is a great phrase. It basically is saying this is an old school type shooter. Nowadays, some people will also call it a movement shooters, because back then the movement was crazy in these games. It was so fast, so they call them movement shooters. So boomer shooter, for probably the beginning of when it came out, was like derisive and kind of like people laughing about it, looking down. But now it's like, no, those were badass games. Those things were fast and like destructive. And just jump into a Quake deathmatch and see what happens to you in a boomer shooter. It will be so different than COD, right? So so I like boomer shooter. I think it's a great phrase. It's a great way to identify easily the kind of gameplay that we had back in the 90s.
Cool. I'm loving the fact that there is this new wave of them as well, which include, of course, remasters of a bunch of old ones like
Turbo Overkill.
Exhumed,
also.
Like you've got Ion Fury and stuff like that coming out these days as well. Phenomenal games. I'm delighted to see that part of a really, really strong linchpin of my childhood coming back around.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think.
Have you played Celico?
I have not.
Yeah.
No.
I'm
thinking I should.
Selaco. It's not out yet, but it's on early access, and it is a Doom mod. It runs on Doom, right? But it's just amazing. It's not a game that you're just like blazing through. It is very tactical. It's Doom pixels, right? Yeah. But it's like all of the stuff in the environment is very Duke Nukem. There's lots of sparks and lots of doors trying to open and all the things that you're trying to do in this crazy environment. And the AI is really good. It's really fun AI with police coming in, but like they're super tactical and very dangerous. And
great.
It's such a good game. It looks so good. It plays so good. And so the team is still working on it to finish it. But man, it's one of the best Doom mods as well.
Cool. I will definitely be looking into that on the way home today. I'm looking forward to it already. So let's talk about the autobiography then, John. Doom Guy, Life in First Person, which has gotten rave reviews left and right, to a point where I actually reached out to somebody to try and organise an interview, and the first thing they said when they got back to me was, "Oh, cool, you're in Ireland. Have you read John's book yet? It's amazing."
Nice.
But is there anything in that book that long-time Doom fans, because one thing about Doom fans is we think we know it all, is there anything in there that will surprise us? Anything that we don't know about John Romero?
Like what people know is Masters of Doom, right? Because that came out 20 years ago. Masters of Doom was mostly interviews with 100 people. Some interviews with me and John, but not that many. So there's not that much detail during the creation of Doom, like my book, which is the whole creation of Doom, right? And in like what was happening inside and all that stuff. So you can't get that from 100 other people that weren't at the company,
Of course, yeah.
So, there were things in magazines that he took information from and all that. But in this game, or in this book, it's all just like, here's what actually happened while we're making Doom, and this is when these things happened, and it's a look inside. Making all of our games and just what happened in the office during those times that's not in any other books or any other magazines or interviews. So I think that people will learn probably a lot of little details that it's not like here's a giant revelation, but I think that there might be things that people haven't heard about. Some people, like if they're game devs, will be surprised to find certain like the timelines on things, like how fast we got things done is the thing that mostly astonishes a lot of people during Doom, because we started Doom in January of '93 and we shipped it on December 10th, but 3 weeks off Doom's dev dev cycle was taken off. So if we take 3 weeks off, we actually shipped it in November. So it's like an 11-month game.
Okay.
3 weeks of Doom was an emergency situation, right, basically near the beginning of making the game, about three and a half months in, where we had a contractor porting Wolfenstein to the Super Nintendo, and then we found out during Doom that nothing had been done on it, and the publisher was asking us, where is it? And we're like, oh no, we thought that it was being done, and nope, was not at all. And so the whole team, which is 5 people, right, there's only 5 people making Doom, we basically all said, we have to stop making Doom, and we all have to make Wolfenstein Super Nintendo. Like, we have to do it ASAP, and we need to get back to Doom, because it's just shortening our timeline in that year. So we jumped on it. We had to learn the hardware of the Super Nintendo. It's an assembly language, 65 C816 assembly language. We needed to know that because we needed to access the low-level parts of the hardware through assembly, and we needed to convert all the graphics, convert all the audio. How do we make music? How do we play sound effects? How do we put graphics on the screen?
Oh my word!
The way we put graphics
from the ground up,
from nothing. Like, we needed to learn this console, and we needed to make Wolfenstein happen on that thing. And there's 5 of us, and that was really the only crunch mode of Doom, was jumping on Wolfenstein and working all hours to get that thing ported, and it took us 3 weeks.
What?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So if we could do Wolfenstein in 3 weeks on a platform we'd never used before, what we were doing during Doom was a ton of work. Right?
Yeah.
It was a ton of work. It was a lot of innovation. It was a lot of putting stuff in and throwing it away. It was, like, say, John putting in the sector traversal for the way that he would cull and draw the screen, and then that doesn't work when I created a certain scene in the game that's just chugged the engine, and they had to basically figure out what binary space partitions were and make them adapt to what levels are in our game, and then make all the culling go instantaneous. Like that new technology that games had used for decades after that. All of these things that we were doing, they were all brand new things. Everything we did in Doom was new. All the games that we had made up until Doom were made on the PC, and we were doing new things in 3D, but we're still using PCs to make PC games. With Doom, we were using NextStep workstations and DOS machines just to run it, NextStep workstations to develop it.
Yeah.
And we were scanning models for the characters and animation, which we'd never done before. It was always done in Deluxe Paint too. So we're scanning stuff in. We were contacting, outside people to help make models that we could scan in. And so we had Gregor Punchatz come in. His dad did the logo and the box cover of Doom.
Okay,
So we had these outside people who were really talented working with us, like, for the first time. And even licensed sound engine from somebody, that needed to be in Doom, because with Doom, another first for us was that it was a big game and that we needed to use the space beyond 1 megabyte in memory on the computers back then, the 386, and so we needed what's called a DOS extender to be able to just load stuff using DOS, load files into high memory. We needed to use a DOS extender that extended the disk operating system, MS-DOS, to load stuff up, into high memory, so we could use 4 megabytes, right? That was Doom's thing, was 4 megs. You need 4 megs so we could load all the textures up there and just make that screen go fast. And so that was brand new for us. It was just like new thing after new thing, BSPs, new technology. The way that the levels were made, never in history have levels looked like this, because they were always 90 degrees. So we had to have a technology that could create a scene that made levels that were really immersive and brand new and lit differently, dark lighting and bright lighting and gradients and diminished lighting going into the darkness. It was always going into dark, so like the engine automatically darkened. And all of these brand new techniques were all happening in Doom while we were trying to design something that was also design-wise innovative, getting rid of score, getting rid of lives, how do we make things scare the player? You know, like in Wolfenstein, we had patrol paths, but we didn't have anybody like waiting to ambush the player, so we put ambush flags on enemies. We had flying enemies. We never had that before. You know, we just like everything was new with Doom. It was just like multiplayer for the first time in games. You know, to play high-speed action games, multiplayer for the first time, deathmatch, the invention of the word, the invention of the mode, co-op in the same game, single-player co-op, deathmatch, all in this game. We made in 11 months. Free to play. We made it mod. We made it a moddable game.
Blown
right?
here. In 11 months.
11 months. It was the first moddable game on purpose. Like, we made it moddable to let people just expand the game forever. It was the birth of speedrunning. There was no speedrunning before Doom because no game let you save and play back your gameplay. And unbelievably, we did allow that. We allowed players to, because it's like it's moddable, let them save the gameplay and play it back and make the files that it saves really small so they can easily upload it to each other. And the funny thing is that since 1990, we've had this ability in every game that we made to save and play back gameplay, because if you play the original Commander Keen in 1990, you'll see gameplay happening in front of you. That's because we recorded it and played it back. We had that ability 3 years before Doom. We could have had speedrunning 3 years earlier than Doom. And we never released it to everybody because modding wasn't even a real thing.
Yeah.
You know, until Wolfenstein, and people just cracked Wolfenstein to mod it. And that was so much work to do that. And when we saw that, it was like, we need to make this next game moddable because people are going to mod it. And it was such a nightmare to figure out how Wolfenstein worked. We need to give people all the information for Doom and make it super open and easy to make this game just live on. And that was one of our bullet points of things that must be done during Doom's development. It was the last one was an open game. And that's the other thing that we added to it. So we got speedrunning, we got modding, we have free shareware, give it away to the world, deathmatch, multiplayer. You know, the world looks different.
Incredible that it all came from
everything
word.
in 11 months. Yeah, all of it. There's even more than that, right? Infighting, like designing things that never happened in games, like all kinds of stuff. A sky. It was the first time people saw skies. You know, in a game, in the first level, when you just move forward and look outside, it's like, holy crap, a sky in a 3D game. You know, so. Yeah, it was just so many firsts in Doom.
People who are looking to get Doom Guy live in first person, where can they pick it up?
You can get it at any local bookstore, and if they don't have it, you can get it on Amazon. And if you want a signed copy, you can go to Romero.com and get a signed copy of the book there.
Fantastic, fantastic. And if they want to keep up with you yourself and all your demon slaying shenanigans, how can they do so?
Well, I'm on Twitch pretty often now. I'm making the 6th episode of Doom right now. It's called Sigil 2. It's going to be released on Doom's birthday this year, on December 10th, 2023, 30th anniversary. It's going to be published by id as well. So it's going to be on our site. It's going to be on the new updates of the Doom ports on Switch and Xbox and all that stuff. So it's going to be out on December 10th, and if you want to watch me build those levels, I'm doing the final one right now, and it's on twitch.tv/the Romero, and you can watch a bunch of past ones, and those also get moved over to YouTube. So if you go to YouTube, you can also find my Sigil 2 mapping streams.
Fantastic. John, it's been an absolute pleasure. Congratulations on 30 years of scaring the heck out of me.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Always only alternative, Flirt FM.